Thank you for joining the team at eScience Labs today for our Discipline Focus Live demo series. Today's topic is dedicated to HOL's A&P Digital Dissection Suite. Before I hand the mic over to our hosts, let's take a moment to review the webinar logistics and provide a brief overview of what you can expect. We encourage our attendees to participate in the conversation by asking questions and sharing resources. Please use the chat function to join the conversation. Be sure to toggle the window to all panelists and attendees if you'd like the entire group to see your comment or question. If you have questions, please type them in the Q&A box. You can find this section on your toolbar. We also have several distance learning specialists on the panel today to help answer any questions you have in real time. For questions pertaining to kit cost and customizations, please work directly with your dedicated distance learning specialist once the webinar concludes. Hannah and Dwayne will address any remaining questions at the end of the demo so you have clarification on important topics. In an effort to better understand you, our audience, we have a couple poll questions for you all today. To participate, please submit your response when you see the poll pop up on your screens throughout this introduction. I'll be sure to announce when we launch the poll as well so that you're prepared for it. At any point in the conversation, you can raise your virtual hand and our distance learning specialist will send you a private chat message to support your needs. All attendees will be entered into a raffle to win a $100 Amazon gift card. We'll share the lucky winner in our follow-up email at the end of the day, along with a recording of this webinar for you to reference moving forward. All right, so it's time for our first poll question. Please refer to the pop-up on your screen and select the answer that best describes your relationship and experience with hands-on labs. All right, fantastic. It looks like we have a nice mix of current customers and those that are new to hands-on labs. Thanks for participating. A quick look at who we are for those who don't know. For more than 25 years, Hands-On Labs has been the pioneer in online science labs, empowering students, instructors, and institutions to stay competitive in new online educational environment. With our robust course content, intuitive online learning platform, sophisticated lab kits, and unparalleled customer service, Hands-On Labs provides instructors with everything they need to launch their distance learning courses. During our demo today, Dr. Hannah Rosen will show you how students can perform classic A&P labs in a fully digital format, while Dr. Dwayne Cagle will give you a tour of our award-winning HOL cloud software. You'll also get an exclusive look at our rigorous labs using BioDigital's groundbreaking technology. But before I introduce our host and distance learning specialists, let's get an idea of your proficiency with online lab learning by launching our second poll question. Just like before, please select the answer that best describes you. Great, it looks like we have a nice mix of instructors who have taught online before and those that are new to online distance learning labs. Thanks again for participating. A quick background on our host today and we'll get started. Dr. Hannah Rosen is our life science subject matter expert who for over 3 years has generated course curriculum for Science Interactive. Dr. Rosen's co-host, Dr. Dwayne Cagle, has been the brains behind HOL's curriculum development and our in-office aquaponics caretaker for over 9 years. We also have several distance learning specialists on the call today who will be manning the chat, answering your questions, and providing helpful resources throughout this webinar. Please help me in giving a warm welcome to Amanda Biggs, Pam Peswing, and our hosts, Dr. Hannah Rosen and Dr. Dwayne Cagle.
All right, everyone, I'm so sorry. It looks like we are having a bit of technical difficulty. Please bear with us as we try and resolve this as soon as possible. Thank you so much.
All right, well, hopefully we're connected now. Thank you for your patience. and I want to welcome you again to today's webinar. Before we dive into our digital dissection offerings, I want to give you a quick overview of our curriculum hosting platform called HOL Cloud. And Cloud will serve as the lab manual for your students taking your online A&P course. And we're going to go through the lab manual as a live student. So what you see on the screen currently is the welcome page for an online A&P student. You'll notice in brown, there is a special message from the instructor. That's followed by prerequisites that the student is expected to complete before beginning the labs. And these prerequisites vary based on the type of lab manual the student is using. All lab manuals come with a getting started prerequisite. That explains to the student how to use all the functions for completing laboratory exercises online through the HOL Cloud platform. Some kits may require a lab safety experiment and others may require a digital microscope. This particular example has all three. And following the prerequisites are the actual laboratory topics and exercises that students will be completing throughout the semester. And these are typically gated by instructors, meaning students are required to complete them in sequence. This student we see has completed the cardiovascular system lab and is ready to begin gross anatomy of the central nervous system. Now you'll notice that when we click on this lab as a student, we can only open the first section titled Exploration. And indeed, all of our curriculum is divided into 3 sections. And those sections are titled Exploration, Experimentation, and Evaluation. And these are modeled after the 5 E's of science learning. So we've included 3 of those E's within the lab manual portion of your online course. The next information that a student encounters is the expected time allocations for each of the independent sections of a lab. And this is a big challenge, we know, for your remote science students. You know, when they're on campus, they're attending a lab for a set number of hours per week. However, to complete laboratory exercises online, it's imperative that the student budget their time accordingly. After the time allocation, the student is presented with detailed learning objectives. These learning objectives are modeled after Bloom's taxonomy. So you'll notice they always start with a verb, and they show a progressing level of understanding between the 3 sections. So in this section, the levels of comprehension are quite low and entail things such as describing, explaining, and identifying various concepts. Now, before a student is introduced to the background material for the lab, they must first complete a pre-test activity, and it's labeled Test Your Knowledge. It always appears as a blue oval at the bottom of the landing page. Now, Test Your Knowledge questions are specifically formative assessments, and they are always drag and drop by format, meaning the student moves their selection to the appropriate location. In this case, it's a matching exercise designed to determine if student knows definitions that are important to the dissection of various central nervous system structures. Once a student makes their selections, they check their answer and are provided with immediate feedback. In this case, we only got 1 of all those selections correct. But the important part here is that as a student, now we have identified what we don't know. Now, we cover all this information in the upcoming pages of the lab manual. However, studies have shown that when a learner can identify knowledge deficiencies, they will pay more attention to that information when it is encountered in the upcoming content pages. Now, most labs contain more than one of these test your knowledge exercises. They may be matching that we've just seen. They could be labeling, like we see here. And they can also be a couple of other formats, but let's finish this labeling exercise first and see how we did on it. And again, this student got 1 correct, but now, very importantly, we can identify easily these concepts and structures in this case that we do not yet understand. And then here's an example of a categorization question. Again, it's drag and drop. It's very engaging for the student. And once they make their selections, they are provided with immediate feedback. After completing the test your knowledge activities, students are introduced to the subject matter of that week's lab assignment. And we design our exploration content very purposefully. It is always manageable blocks of text with all important terms in bold, immediately followed by a series of images so that students are both engaged visually, but more importantly, able to visually relate to the concepts that are being introduced in the text. So you'll notice as we scroll through this content, 1 or 2 paragraphs at most, always followed by an image. At the bottom of many of the content pages, we've also included a did you know fact for students. These facts are designed specifically for students to relate to the concepts that are being introduced on that particular page. So we explain something that a student should already be familiar with or easily understand and how it relates to the content being provided. Very importantly, at the bottom of most content pages is a question time activity for the student. And question time activities are always multiple choice questions that are directly related to the content that has been provided on that page. So this is a way for the student to confirm that they understand the important concepts as they are being introduced to that student. As we saw before, the student would make a choice, they'll check their answer, and again be provided with immediate feedback. However, now, in addition to that feedback, the student is supplied with remediation in the essence that the correct answer is provided for them. So we want to assure that even if students answer incorrectly, that they are given the information that they should understand, and they see that how it's used in the sentence. This particular page has 2 questions. Again, student makes selections and are provided with immediate feedback. Only after they answer these questions can the student advance to the next page. So you'll see these are grayed out. Once a student completes all the activities on each page, they are able to advance through the exploration content of the lab manual. Only after completing all these exploration pages, and here you'll see in this particular lab there are 5, can the student begin the experimental procedures. And it's really the procedures that are the focus of today's webinar. And that's where Hannah has taken her time to design these very detailed procedures for these digital dissections. So I'm going to turn the presentation over to Hannah at this moment, and she can give you a walkthrough of how students use the digital dissection model in conjunction with their lab manual to virtually dissect various human structures.
Thank you very much, Dwayne. I will now share my screen so we can see. So as Dwayne just explained, once the students have completed their exploration section, they will then progress on to the experimentation section. And similar to the exploration section, the experimentation section starts with this landing page where the students are alerted to approximately how much time it's going to take them to complete the experimentation, as well as the learning objectives that they will be covering through the course of the different exercises in the experimentation section. So in this example, which is the gross anatomy of the central nervous system, students will be working through the virtual biodigital model of the human brain in order to identify various structures. So students can navigate with the drop-down menu to open up the various exercises. And when they open up these biodigital dissection exercises, the first thing that they are going to be prompted to do is to launch the model that they are working on. So when students select the button, the model will launch in a separate tab, which will enable students to toggle back and forth between the protocols and the model that they're working on. Students who have never used the biodigital model before can launch the modal, which will instruct them how to start the biodigital tutorial within the biodigital model, as well as giving them an explanation of how to use some of the more important tools that they'll need to successfully complete these virtual dissections. Students will then be instructed to locate various structures on the model. And when doing so, they can interact with the biodigital model in numerous different ways. One of which is by selecting with their mouse and dragging. They can rotate the model to view it at whatever angle they need to in order to better view the structures in question. By opening up the 3D controls panel, students can switch to a pan mode where they can move the perspective of the model on the screen. They can also zoom into the model or zoom out if they need to zoom in to better view specific structures. When they open the Explore Tools panel, they can select specific structures on the model. So that way, this will aid them in identifying specific structures that they may be asked to look at on the model. And if students feel like they don't quite understand what that structure is as much as they would like to, they can select the Read More button, which will then open a description of that specific structure on the left-hand side. If students are having difficulties locating a structure, whether that be because they can't quite remember what it is, or they just want to double check they've got the correct structure, for example, if for the cerebellum, they're having a hard time remembering where exactly that is, or just want to double check they've got the correct one, they can open the search feature and type in whatever structure they're looking for, and then it'll pop up on the menu down here, and they select that feature, and the model will automatically highlight it and zoom in on that specific feature, and then students can interact with it if they need to from there. So this is just a lot of features to really help ensure student success as they're working through these dissections. Another very important tool that the students will need when they are looking at deeper structures in the model is the hide feature. When students select the hide feature, they can then, whatever structure on the model they select, that structure will disappear. And this will be very important when students are looking at the deeper structures. They can also reset the chapter if they need to, if they realize that they've hidden a structure that they didn't want to. They can redo and undo different actions in case they click on the wrong thing. So students will be instructed to locate the structures of the brain. And once they feel like comfortable that they have located all of the structures that they need to, and they have the brain in the right orientation to view all of those structures, they'll then be instructed to take a screenshot of that region of the model and then upload the photo of that screenshot into their data table. And so students can just select the data tab at the bottom of the screen to open up that panel. And in this area, students will be able to upload photos, write down observations if that is requested of them, or fill out any data tables that they need. And the nice thing about this feature is that it autosaves for the students. So if the student is working through an exercise and they suddenly lose their internet connection, or they need to stop for some unforeseen reason, they won't have to worry about losing their place. Everything that they have already done and uploaded will be saved for them. So students can upload their screenshots into these photo panels, and then they can use the annotation feature that is built into the cloud platform in order to label the structures that they are required to label in the subsequent steps. So again, thanks to that autosave feature, if the student has uploaded their photo, they get halfway through labeling it, all of a sudden they lose their internet connection, that will all be saved for them. Their progress will be saved. They won't have to go back and redo everything. So then again, as students are working through, once they've successfully labeled and identified all of the outer structures, they will then go through and be instructed to hide different structures so that they can then view the internal anatomy of the model. And then they'll go through the same process. Once they have been able to locate all of the structures that is required of them, they take another screenshot, upload it into the next photo panel, and then they will label it using the annotation feature. As the students progress through the procedure, they will finish with a bunch of exercise questions that are short answer questions that are meant to test what the students should have learned when they were following the protocols in the exercise. So students can either wait until they've fully completed the exercise to answer these questions, or they can answer the questions as they work through the protocols. It's really up to them. Just as with the data function, these questions all autosave for the students. So that again, if they lose their internet connectivity, they will not risk losing their progress that they've made within these exercise questions. Once the students have completed all of the exercises in a specific lesson, they will then be able to progress on to the evaluation section. And I will now pass it back over to Dwayne so that he can give you guys a very good run through of the functionality of the evaluation section of the cloud.
Great, Hannah. Thank you so much for the demonstration of the virtual dissection. So let's jump back into an example of what we're going to see as far as the evaluation section for students. So this particular student, now to refresh your memory, they have completed the exploration section. They've completed the experimentation section, which involved the virtual dissection. And now they're ready for the final phase of this laboratory assignment, and that is entitled evaluation. Again, it begins with the time allocation. It's a refresher of all the learning objectives with a note for the student for them to review those learning objectives and assure they have completed them. And then it is the formal evaluation. You'll notice the student gets a pop-up that makes sure that they understand that the lesson is about to be locked, meaning that they will need to answer these questions without the ability to return to the content during this final exam. Once the student acknowledges that, they begin to complete a series of multiple choice questions. These questions are correlated to each of the learning objectives for the lab, and they span all of the content that has been provided, from the background information in the exploration section, which contain the definitions and explanations of various concepts, through the procedures, and through the experimental outcomes. So such as references to photos that students would have uploaded from the virtual dissection and their overall understanding of the relative position of various structures within that particular dissection exercise. Again, we've seen how these questions function, so we're going to make our selection. We're going to hit next for all of these questions, and I'm going to fly through them because I want you to see what the student encounters once they have completed their selections. So you'll notice this is a little different than the first experience the student had at the bottom of the exploration pages, and that they were provided with feedback as soon as they answered the question. In this instance, it's important that the student demonstrate all their cumulative knowledge before they are provided with any feedback, at which time they select Finish. And now they are provided with detailed feedback and remediation for all of their answer selections. You'll see they're easy to identify the ones they got correct versus incorrect. And very importantly, on the incorrect answers, not only are students given what the answer should have been, but they are referred back to the particular content or exercise page where this information is provided. And then lastly, the student is able to relate this question to the learning objective that it is correlated with. So the student then can acknowledge, if they really did attain each of the learning objectives that were assigned to the lab. Now, students can go back and review at this point in time, but they cannot go back and change their answers to these questions. This is a formal exam. It's auto-graded within the lab manual platform, and I would assume for most instructors will serve as a large portion of the student's grade for this particular lab experience. Students are also provided with an opportunity to apply the knowledge they've gained from conducting the laboratory procedures to address new problems or scenarios. We call these extension questions, and students will encounter one or more of these. They are open-ended and, again, designed for a student to apply their knowledge. A student finishes a lab assignment by signing a certification form, and then they're provided with a formal report that they choose to submit officially to the school, or the instructor, even if the student doesn't submit, can go into the instructor view and see the student's answers at any time. So this concludes the student experience when using the digital lab manual, which has included these digital virtual dissections. But I would be remiss if I didn't spend just 2 or 3 minutes showing you the instructor tools that you have access to on the cloud-based lab manual platform. And these tools are going to allow you not only to view your students' activities remotely, but also communicate with them, set up grading rubrics, and import information into and out of your learning management system. So I'm going to change the screen share right now to get to a different view and take a look then at instructor tools that we've developed for you on HOL Cloud platform. All right, so what we're seeing here is a page not unlike the page we started with in the student experience. You'll notice the same array of lessons. You'll also notice that communication box that the student read that was highlighted in brown on their page. But the difference being in this instructor view is that we control that message. We can delete it in real time for our students and add a new message as we choose, and just click save. And in real time now, this is going to appear for any of my students that are logged on to their lab manual, or for students who are not, they will see it immediately when they do log on. You're also going to see that the lesson array looks slightly different in the instructor view. And this is because you, the instructor, have the ability to rearrange the lesson flow for your students. So you can be assured that students encounter lessons in the lab manual that match the order that you cover those topics in the lecture portion of your online course. You can also unlock all the lessons simultaneously and allow students to complete in any order just by checking and unchecking this box. But let's go back and take a look at the lesson we just saw from student view in instructor view, so I can share some more tools that we make available to our clients. So we've seen this page before. Now, as an instructor, I can preview all those drag and drop questions that my student answered. Because I'm not a student, I can't go through and get the answers in the feedback, but at least I can see how the information is portrayed for the student. Similarly, on each of the exploration content pages, I get a view, not unlike the student has, of all the content, including the images, the did you know boxes, and those question time activities at the bottom of each page. But what you may have noticed as I was scrolling through this, that there are these pulsing blue bars, and these are very unique to instructor view. And these blue bars are opportunities for you, the instructor, to add supplemental content to the existing lab manual. So when you click on one of these blue bars, you can add text, images, and or videos within an existing content page. So this really is a great opportunity for you to customize the content to best meet the needs of your course and your students. Now, any content that you add, all it requires is for you to hit save. And once you save that content, it appears in a beige highlighted tone for both you and your students. Now, this is important because it delineates the content that you've elected to place in the lab manual from the standard content. So students are immediately drawn to it when this appears on their content pages. And again, this is a live push of information, meaning as soon as you hit save, it appears on the pages for your students. So you can update things in real time for your students by simply hitting the save button each time you add text, upload images, or upload videos. Now, you are not restricted to doing that just in this background section or exploration. You can also take advantage of these tools in the experimentation section. So for example, in one of these virtual dissections, if you wanted to include some additional structures that were not pointed out in our standard procedures, you can easily go in and add additional steps for students or additional features and structures for students to identify and then therefore label once they upload those screen captures from the virtual dissection model. Now, instructors are not locked out of every page, so you can jump around to any page you want go in, add information as needed. So there's no gating involved with instructor view. And again, that's also true for the experimentation pages. So that's very exciting. It gives you real-time customization of your course. You can communicate with your students very effectively that way, right within a content page. But what other tools have we given you? Well, we've provided you with the drop-down in the upper left-hand corner of your instructor screen. You can view a class list for all of your students who are enrolled. And here we see this particular class list. It has some really famous people, celebrities, if you will. Some of these people you may have never thought would have gone back to school, but I guess these are drastic times. But anyway, you can see the last time the student logged in to their content. So if you're just curious about how your students are progressing and when the last time they completed a laboratory activity it was, you can easily see that on this screen. If for any reason you needed to delete a student's access to the online lab manual, you can by using the little delete tab in the far right of the student listing. So if you have a student drop the class, you can easily delete them from the lab manual platform and those activities by manually clicking the X. What else can you do? You can upload supplemental documents for your students here. If you have some documents you want your students to be able to download and print or store on their computer, we provide you with answer guides that you can download onto your device and store. But more importantly than answer guides, we provide you with a functional gradebook tool. And the gradebook tool is going to allow you to do several things. First and foremost, it's going to give you a snapshot of each student's progress in your laboratory course and the grades that have been assigned for each of those students. So, for example, you'll see that Snoop Dogg here has completed 1, 2, 3, 4 particular experiments, has begun 2 experiments, and 2 experiments remain untouched. However, a complete grade has not been assigned to any of Snoop's labs. That is in contrast to Martha's labs, who, for one of them, does have a grade already assigned. So how do you assign grades? Well, you assign grades in 2 ways. First, you need to set up your grading rubric. Many questions in each of the labs are auto-graded, as you saw. All of the questions that were multiple choice and drag and drop are graded by the system. You just need to tell the system what grade you want it to assign. And to do that, you simply go into a given lab and assign point values to each of the questions. Once you've done that, then the system can more effectively grade your students. The second thing you need to do to assign a grade to each of your students is to manually grade any open-ended responses that the student has provided. So, for example, those end of exercise questions or those extension questions at the end of the lab, and then certainly any image labeling panels, those do require you to manually grade. And then once you've completed both the grading rubric and any of the manual grading, these cells will populate with a number inside of them. So again, this is a great tool for the instructor. You can easily look at this, see which students remain to be graded, and then can easily go in and accomplish that task. A couple of other tools I want to cover, and then we're going to turn this back over to Hannah. We have built into the HOL Cloud platform the capability for instructors to author unique lessons. And we call this tool custom lesson authoring. It allows you to create your own virtual lesson if you would like, and then house that within our existing labs. or use it to take the place of one of our existing labs. You have all the design tools that our internal authoring team does to create interactive questions, to create all the text, images, and videos you would like, to create unique procedures, and then those final exams. So again, anything you've seen between Hannah and my presentations today, you have all of those tools available under the custom lesson authoring function. And then lastly, we've given you the ability to allow students access to the online lab manual and also determine how the online lab manual integrates into your learning management system. That can be as simple as providing a direct enrollment link for your students, to completely integrating not only the lab manual, but also the gradebook tools into your existing learning management system. We have training guides to assist you and your IT team on these integrations, and are always around to provide you with support as needed. But that's enough of all of this tech stuff. The reason you joined us today was for virtual dissections. So at this point, I'm going to turn this presentation back over to Hannah for the final time. And I believe she is going to conduct a poll that will share with you all of our titles associated with the virtual dissection model and allow you to take a deeper dive into those that you choose, and she'll give you a quick demo of what those particular titles look like. So Hannah, take it away, please.
Thank you very much, Dwayne. So yeah, I really want to give you guys a much better feel for the capabilities of this BioDigital model. I showed you one of our single organ dissections, and in addition to these 4 individual organ dissections that dive into a lot of detail on the individual organs, we also have 7 total full body dissection exercises. And so I really wanted to give you guys an opportunity to see what one of those might look like. So we're going to present you with a subset of those full body dissections that you can select from to choose which one you would like to see the most demoed. And then when I finish with that demo, we'll provide you with a list of all the options that we have available. So right now we'd like to launch a poll and see which of our sample lessons you would like to see the most. All right, we have a handy winner, which is cardiovascular system, heart and blood vessels. And this one is an interesting one because it actually has 2 different dissection exercises in it. It has one of our individual organ dissections, which is of the heart, and then it has one of those full body dissections in it as well. So for the sake of time, I'm going to jump straight into the full body dissection for this one. And just as with the individual organ dissections, the first thing that once students complete all of their exploration content, the first thing that they're going to be prompted when they open the exercise protocol is to launch that BioDigital model. Now, this model includes all of the different body system models that the students will have the opportunity to work through. And they will be able to select which system they want to work on at a time by navigating through the chapter menu on the left-hand side of the screen. So as students scroll through the procedures, they will be prompted as to which chapter they're going to need to open in order to successfully complete that particular exercise. So in this case, we're going to scroll down to the cardiovascular system chapter and select that one. And one of the first things you're going to notice is that there are going to be certain body parts and organs that are missing in this chapter that were present on the first chapter. The reason for this is because we wanted to recreate a real-life dissection as much as possible. So typically when we send out a physical dissection specimen, for example, a fetal pig, students will be progressing through the different body system dissections. So for example, they may start out with the muscular system. They'll perform the muscular system dissection on their dissection specimen. And then once they've completed that body system, they will be prompted to safely store the dissection specimen until they move on to the next body system. So we wanted to recreate that activity here, where if the students are doing the cardiovascular system, they've probably already completed both the muscular system and the nervous system dissections. And therefore, we wanted them to be able to just sort of pick up where they left off so that it felt more real, like they're actually progressing through these different body systems on their own. And so, as with the individual organ dissections, students will be instructed to how to orient themselves to the individual structures in question. So for example, here, they were going to be instructed to zoom in on the neck and shoulder region. And so students will use the appropriate tools in order to orient the model to exactly where they want it to be so that they can then proceed to the next step, which in this case is going to be to hide all of the muscles of the neck and shoulder region until they're able to reveal all of the structures that we want them to be able to look at. So the students will then navigate to the hide button and they'll go through, and we've designed this to be very free form for the students. We want the students to be making their own choices, to be building off of all of that information they learned in the exploration section. So students will then be instructed to hide things until they have the specific structures in question visible. And if students want to make sure that they've got the correct structure visible, they can then select them and view them and make sure that they have all of the structures that they want to be able to see visible in this model. And they can use the search feature to find them. If they haven't been able to make it visible, they aren't really sure how, they can find that feature and then say to themselves, okay, what structures do I need to remove in order to make this feature more visible? Again, they will then be taking screenshots, uploading them into the data section, and annotating them using the annotation feature in the cloud program. And then once again, answering all of those exercise questions. So at this moment, now that you guys have kind of a good feel for the idea of how the BioDigital models function, what our potential offerings are, I want to now show you the full list of lessons that we offer with the BioDigital models and answer any questions that you may have. And I just want to thank you guys once again for coming to this webinar and learning more all about this amazing product.
Thank you both, Dr. Hannah and Dr. Dwayne. I really appreciate you guys taking the time to go through that demo and the HOL Cloud with us today. So we do have a couple questions. The first one is going to be for Hannah. What are the zoom magnification levels in BioDigital when you're doing the dissections? Are there specific pre-designated regions to zoom with specific indicators?
So we've worked with BioDigital to basically make these dissection models very freeform for the students. So there are, as you saw with the search feature, they will automatically zoom in on that feature to a preset zoom level, but we don't really have any specific, zoom to 100x or zoom to this magnification set out here. We want students to basically make the judgments on their own to say, we'll tell them, zoom to a point where you can really well view this structure. And the students will then, we don't get into, they can't see individual cell level. The zoom isn't that powerful. They won't be able to see, the minutia of the tissues themselves. It's really more so that they can zoom in and see the specific organs and structures and orient them to their best ability. So we want to make this really as if the students are going through this dissection on their own and they're really applying everything they've learned in the exploration content.
Thank you. All right. This is for Dwayne. How do you prevent this from getting shared on cheating sites online? I know that's a common concern, Dr. Dwayne.
Well, we can't prevent someone from sharing something online. One thing we have done is we've made it optional for schools to allow students the ability to download a final report of their lab activities. So that final page we saw where it showed the student all their correct and incorrect answers. There's a follow-up page to that the student can review all of their data submissions and open-ended question submissions. By rote, that information stays on the cloud and can be viewed by the instructor and can be ported into the school's learning management system. However, there is an option on there to have students download a PDF of that information. I strongly suggest don't have your students download anything from the cloud, i.e. that report. So therefore, if they share any information to third-party cheating sites, they've had to manually copy things and type in and submit to those sites. So again, none of us, me nor you, can prevent students from selling information, but we can make it more difficult for them by not giving them an easily generated format of doing that.
All right, perfect. Thank you. All right, this one is for Hannah. Is it possible to only use the dissection portion of the software for my course, or do I have to use the lab manual as well?
Well, this is actually something I think that Dwayne can probably chime in on too, because this comes down to a lot of the features of the cloud, because it is automatically set up where it is gated and students have to complete certain sections of the cloud in order to progress. But Dwayne, please jump in and correct me if I'm wrong here, but I do believe that as the instructor, you can change that gating if you want. And so you can unlock the exercise portion and have students jump directly into that if you want them to skip over the exploration section. Dwayne, do you want to chime in a little bit more on that for me?
You would have to create a custom lesson for that. All of our standard curriculum requires students to progress through the exploration before they begin the procedures. And there's no way to turn that on or off. It's just inherent to the platform. Now, having said that, again, you could create a custom lesson using the custom lesson authoring tool where you delete the exploration section if you wanted to do that, and you only wanted to create an exercise for your students. So in that effect, it's available that way.
All right, great. Thank you, guys. All right, we have another question. Do added images need to have public domain or copyright clearance?
I'll answer that. So not on you, the instructor's end. So I'm guessing your school, like most, can share information with students because of the business model of your school, in that you're not profiting from, as an individual, from any information you're sharing with your students. You're educating them. So it's a little bit different business model than say, a publisher who needs to own the rights to their images, for example. So long story short, no, you as an educator, if you want to upload supplemental images or create your own lesson, you do not need to own the rights to those images for the purposes of your specific course. That's different on our end because we're a publisher. But again, should not matter for you as an educator.
Okay, great. All right, thank you. All right, Hannah, we have a question for you in regards to ADA compliance. Is that available with BioDigital software?
I do believe it is. Yeah, I definitely, we can double check on that and double check just on how fully compliant it is in that regards, but it is ADA compliant. I need to double check on the extent of the ADA compliance. But if you, whoever is interested in that, if you get in touch with your distance learning specialist and follow up on that question, we can get you with much more specifics of exactly how the functionality of the ADA compliance for the BioDigital model works.
Okay, great. All right, we have another question here. Can one upload videos, diagrams that cannot be downloaded or saved by students? This person uses cadaver dissection, which has very strict rules in regards to students recording.
Absolutely. So any content that you as an educator create on a lesson page, whether that's textual content, diagrammatic content, or videos, students are not able to download those effects. The only type of documentation that students can download that you have hosted in the digital lab manual would be if you used that documents tool that I showed in the instructor toolbox. And then that allows you to upload document files that then students can download. But anything you put live in a lesson within a content page, no, students cannot steal that, for lack of a better word. So.
Okay. All right, great. We have one more question as of right now. Do we, as the professors or instructors, own the material that we place in yours? So in the lesson, do they own the material?
Yeah, I mean, that's your material. We as a publisher, we do not go into custom authored labs that you have created on your own, nor do we go into your live instances and alter them in any way. That's your content for you to use. So we have no ownership of it. We do not use it in any form or fashion for our students. Our content is our content. We publish it in the cloud. It's there for you and your students. If you would like to add additional content or create your own lessons, that is yours.
All right. All right, everyone. I think, let's see if we have any last minute questions for you guys real quick. I know we're close to the end, so let's see if we can answer one or two more. Okay. We have one more. Can the user generate a test of questions in this platform that is combined from different topics?
I'm sorry. Can you repeat that question again, Lindsay?
Yeah. Can the user generate a test of questions in the platform that is combined from different topics?
I mean, you could certainly use the custom lesson authoring tool again to create, if you wanted to just create a cumulative exam for the entire semester. So think of it as a traditional lab practical that you might administer to on-campus students. You can certainly create that. Again, you have all the tools at your disposal that we do as internal authors, publishers, using that custom lesson authoring tool. So if you wanted to create just one big exam as a standalone activity for your students and then place it at the end of the semester, you have the opportunity to do that.
All right, great. Thank you guys so much, Dr. Dwayne, Dr. Hannah, for taking the time today and doing this with us. And thank you everyone who has attended and engaged with us, asked us great questions. We hope you enjoyed your time today. We hope you learned some new things about our product, and we will be sending out an email by the end of the day to you guys with a recording of this webinar, so you can share with your colleagues and friends. And we just wanted to say thank you again, and we hope you guys take care. Bye now.